Hello there, this is Alex from Who Target, and come in, welcome, enjoy. So, I'm going to discuss today, because it being the day that the last episode of Doctor Who Season 2 or Season 15, depending what you call it. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what a regeneration is and what we have now, which is called bi-generation. So, regeneration was originally thought of when it came from William Hartnell wanting to leave and Patrick Troughton coming in as the second Doctor. And they didn't know what to do. They wanted Doctor Who to continue. They had a new Doctor, played by Pat Troughton. William Hartnell was very ill and was struggling to do parts of the 10th Planet. And they thought, well, what happens if the Doctor is still the same person, but gets a new face, gets a new body, gets a new aspect? You know, Pat Troughton's performance is amazing and much different to William Hartnell's sort of grumpy, sort of godfatherly uncle, sort of not very great person, but really cosy and comfy by the end, basically. So we went to Pat Troughton, everything changed. He was more irascible, he was more bouncy, he was still brilliant, and as you know, he's known as the cosmic hobo. Then we moved to John Pertwee, who was stuck on the Earth, and that's how they twisted that. So Doctor Who's always changed. The regeneration has always helped the change, basically, which we went from 2, where he was allowed to travel everywhere and still did, and then because what happens in the War Games, he gets told by the Time Lords that he cannot move from Earth. We then moved to John Pertwee, who gets stuck on Earth and becomes a part of UNIT, and they brought UNIT in. So that's another change because of regeneration. We had UNIT, we had other ways of dealing with the Doctor. And this theory that the Doctor never changed, it always should be stable, I think is complete rubbish, because every time a new Doctor or a new producer comes in, they wanted to put their own stamp on it, and they wanted to do different things, and that's why the Doctor, in my opinion, has lasted 60 years, because it's always different. It's always the same man underneath it, the time traveller who wants to experience and be good and have, charity and love and all nice things, but underneath that is the steeliness, the man who's seen everything, the God Slayer, the oncoming storm, as he's later known. And then we move from John Pertwee, once he can get about, and to the irascible, fantastic Tom Baker, and lots of great things. And they changed it again. Every Doctor has his own stamp on it, in my personal opinion. And maybe he outstayed his way a little bit, by 8 years of Tom Baker. There was things that needed changing, and John Nathan Turner, once he kicked in, did change things. And then we moved to Peter Davison, and Peter Davison is completely different. His perspective on the Doctor once he regenerates is completely different. That first season where he is just regenerating, because always a regeneration comes with that sort of first story of where the Doctor is getting used to the new body and not quite himself and becoming ill or being not as good as he can be, and then by the end of the episode becomes the Doctor we love and get to know for the rest of the series. And that happened with Peter Davison. I think that was Castelvalva we saw that with, and the great bits of Adric being sick in the background. If you've ever watched the Blu-ray, you can see it there. Matthew Waterhouse obviously being very ill on that holiday filming. We have the whole season of Peter Davison, and that moved into a more irascible Doctor. And I still think Colin Baker's first regeneration story, where he tries to strangle and rape Perry, is a brilliant regeneration before he comes to sort of irascible, blinding coat Doctor who's a war fighter. He's a chess player. And then we moved from Colin, because of the strikes and everything going a bit Pete Tong at the BBC, we moved to Sylvester McCoy, rice pudding and all those great bits with Davros. And you look at the comparison between Colin and the Seventh Doctor, they're completely different, and that's my point. Each Doctor brings his own individual stamp on it from the regeneration, and I think without regeneration you wouldn't have the Doctor, you wouldn't have how they are. And then we had the wilderness years, we had that break, and then we got back to Russell T Davies's period of Doctor Who, where we had Christopher Eccleston, the black, very dark, very disturbed because of the Time War, and that leather jacket looked excellent. And then we moved to the sprightly, more Pat Troughton, David Tennant, and still completely different. And then to Matt Smith, who's completely different again, but brilliant. And I have to say, I didn't get... Regeneration was really good with Matt Smith. That's one of the better ones again. I didn't get the point of regeneration there with Matt. I did not like Matt for a good season. And then I was at Regeneration, and that's the Welsh Doctor Who convention we used to run, and people just went, take all the bits of the Doctor you like, and then you'll see it in Matt. And I just watched one episode, and it completely clicked. So that's another point of Regeneration. They can go with what they want, and I know Matt watched an awful lot of Pat Troughton's period to get it right. So there you go. Every Regeneration adds another chunk to the Doctor, I think. And then we move from Matt to Jodie, and that's the one that caused the most controversy. See, controversy, that's also good with Doctor Who. Controversy is good. We moved to the first ever female Doctor. And yeah, there was missteps, there was misdirections when it came to her Doctor. The writing wasn't great, but that wasn't her fault. And I'm really looking forward to Jodie being on Big Finish and seeing how they fix the errors like they did with Colin Baker. And I think her stuff on Big Finish is going to be absolutely amazing. And then, of course, with the Jodie period, we did something completely different again. We had the Fugitive Doctor, played by the amazing Joe Marston, and people go, no, how can you have that? You know, it can't have that. That's before Hartnell. Or is it before Hartnell? Because the way people put the list now, they have her in the Jodie period. They have her before the Shooty, sort of, you know, putting Jodie and then the Fugitive Doctor, then Shooty. So it's all up to the fan base, basically. You can choose which way you want to go with Doctor Who. You can either love it, you can hate it, but you can't just sit there and become, you know, an Andrew Tate sort of misogynistic person and say, oh, I hate this, I'm not going to watch this because it's a woman, because it's a gay person. Because Doctor Who has to incorporate all those bits. It has to find its mark in the 21st century, where these things really don't matter, to be honest. To be, you know, to be out proud and gay is just how it is these days. To be transgender, it's how it is. Life has changed, thank God. And, you know, having a woman as a doctor was a fabulous, you know, move to make. And then we get to the bit what everybody seems to not like. I think it works, personally, and that's a new thing, not a regeneration, a bi-generation. And bi-generation means where you have one Doctor, like you had David Tennant playing the 14th Doctor, or the 13.1, if you want to call it, depending on how you look at it. So you probably hear a motorbike go past. And that was David Tennant. And then at the end of the specials for the 60th, we had Shooty, but the way they did it is he pulled him apart, and that's called bi-generation, where you have two same Time Lords, but pulled apart. So they're not in the same time world or time system. They live in their own separate universes. And now we've just seen that with the Rani and Mrs. Flood. And I personally think with the Rani and Mrs. Flood, it was a bit of a mistake, personally. I don't think it works. I think, personally, what Anita Dobson should have just been the Rani, because he spent those whole 2 seasons basically showing you how nasty it was and building it all up, and then suddenly, bi-generation. I know the person who plays the Rani, so I can't pronounce her now, I'm really bad at those sort of pronunciations. The person who's playing the young one is really good. I think she's really got the whole nastiness of the Rani. I'd be much happier without the bi-generation and just being Mrs. Flood. But you might disagree, you might have other opinions on bi-generations. Let me know in the comments. And I personally think we're going to get back to a new regeneration. I really don't want it tonight. Hope you're all going to the cinemas and enjoying outside. People about outside, you probably heard a door bang or so. I hope you're all going to have fun in the cinema tonight, enjoying the hour episode. But how on earth are we going to get everything fixed and out? There's so many sort of web strands that, you know, Russell T Davies has put out there. You know, what's the Rani? Why is Poppy the child? Is Poppy the Doctor's daughter? Is the Doctor going to see his granddaughter again? Is the Doctor going to regenerate? Why was Rogue there? So I continue. There are so many parts from last week's first part, and it was definitely a first part. That's the only problem with Wishing Well, although it was great and I thought it was very enjoyable, the whole Truman Show bit. I thought it was more, this is like asking questions. This is like a part 1 of a big end story. So I think, and I do agree with Hugh Coulter's Ellie, that it would work much better if the Rani bit hadn't been added to Interstellar Song Competition. If it had been part of Wishing World, if it had been like, you don't know it's the Rani, you spend the whole episode wondering who this woman is, and then by the end of the episode you find out it's the Rani, but you find out it's Mrs. Flood, not another Rani, and all that sort of bi-generation took the sort of, well, it's okay. I didn't really feel, wow, like I did with things like Power of the Doctor when you saw Old Companions, or in what's the episode called? The episode where you get Joe Marston introduced to the Doctor for the first time, and Captain Jack was in it. And honestly, because they didn't say, if you were blind like me, I thought it was Captain Jack, not Rogue, last week. It sounded so much like John Barrowman, but obviously they sound similar, but it was Mr. Rogue, wasn't it? So, yeah, let me know your opinions. There will be another video coming later on, of course, the reality war. See what happens. I really hope that Shooty doesn't regenerate, or they just leave it on a cliffhanger, because we know it's going to be put on hiatus, I reckon, to 2027. We do get the War Among the Sea coming soon, hopefully. I believe there's going to be a trailer straight after the episode in the cinema, so do not leave, do not jump up as soon as the credits come, otherwise you'll miss that at the cinema. And straight after the episode, I think there is going to be a War Among the Seas trailer coming tonight, basically, and hopefully that will come before the end of the year. So if we don't get anything to 2027, it won't fill too much of the gap, because you'd have that as well. But let me know your thoughts, feelings here on the channel. We'd love to get more viewers. I see we're up to 26 now, so thank you to people who are adding themselves slowly. But to get to 30 by end of June would be amazing. So keep the love, keep the faith, people. Bye.